do some of these one-on-one interviews because, as we know, the climate slash food security, food supply continuum is massive, right? There's so much that we could tackle within that entire continuum. And we felt that bringing a couple of guests that are working on some really cool and really interesting projects might be good to help share some perspective, some food for thought that might help you figure out what you might want to tackle, what you want to spend this month working on. And yeah, I guess like without further ado, I'd love to introduce Vanessa to this. And I'm just gonna throw it over to Vanessa for her to give a little bit of an introduction to herself and maybe share, Vanessa, a little bit about some things that you're working on right now and what is really exciting about some projects that you're working on right now. So go for it.
Thank you, and hello to all the attendees. Thank you, Carolyn, for inviting me. So my name is Vanessa Ling Yu, and a little bit about me is that I was born in a rural area of Nova Scotia in the east coast of Canada by the ocean, which it gets really cold, a different kind of cold. It gets in your bones. But there was also farmers around, and I've moved and worked and lived in different places, including Europe and the US. And now I'm currently based for quite a while in Toronto. And I love it. It's an international city with lots of activity and action going on. And I think I would distinguish it from where I was born because whereas there's so much land in Nova Scotia and inexpensive land, in the city, there's less arable land. There is, and different ways to use places to plant. And I think it's how you look at it. Toronto is known as the Garden City, or the garden among the city and a park. That's what it is. And I think it's what you open your eyes to, and that includes rooftops, balconies, backyards. And so, yeah, that's a little bit about me. I guess in the area of food, a few things that folks, probably Carolyn included, don't know are that a researcher told me once that my father owned and operated Canada's oldest restaurant. And as you can probably see, I am of Asian descent, Chinese specifically. And what's telling about that is, I say it like that because that's how he defined it, the researcher. Single person owned and operated. So every day, nonstop, and that affected our family life. Like I lived and breathed that restaurant. But on paper, it was my father. But of course, especially in a smaller town, you've got community and you've got your family contributing to that. And there's a lot of cultural kind of things involved. And my educational background in a nutshell is I've got a ton. But in little ways, sociology, health and society, public health and health promotion, and anthropology. And throughout my professional work experience, I've worked corporate, I've worked at educational institutions, community level, grassroots, entrepreneurship, owned a few businesses, including a restaurant that I had started with a partner, what was that? Feels so long ago. A media, it was very short-lived. It was a media group that I started with my girlfriends. And now I run a company that's called Food Spoke Strategic Solutions. that is kind of like the background to Cater Toronto and a new project that I'm hoping to get off the ground called the Better Food Work Network.
Awesome.
Oh, another small tiny thing is throughout all of this work, I don't sleep a lot, and I don't take a lot of pride in that. It's actually a bit of a coping mechanism. But what I've always done is I always have 2 or 3 jobs. And that's part of entrepreneurship, the lean approach and funding yourself. But it's also, I love working in food. It's where I learn. It's also so nice to be somebody else's staff sometimes. It's where I get some insights and yeah.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for that. Did you always, you mentioned that your educational background is a lot, right? You grew up with food in your background, kind of like with your father, right? Did you always know that you wanted to work in the food system space, or was that something that you realized as you kind of became an adult?
I think I can't trace the history of like food systems, that concept. I can tell you as a young, like preteen, I didn't sleep because I dreamt of menus.
Wow.
I had so many restaurants planned, and out of respect and knowledge of how difficult it is to run a restaurant, with the integrity that I wanted to give it, I put the idea of owning a restaurant in my retirement plan.
Okay.
And because I think it's because I knew how much would go into it.
Right.
And there's also a bit of like an immigration cultural kind of bent to it. Is I can't speak for all immigrants, but I can say, backed by research and my own personal experiences, that there are racialized immigrants that are pushed into food, and as a result very much frown upon working with food for their kids because they aspire or want their children to have something better.
Right.
And then there's a layer of my being a female that also kind of pushes me out of that. And to be sure, like I did enjoy the work that I was doing, but always in the back I was still planning these, like my eventual retirement in a restaurant.
Yeah. That's amazing. It's always captivating to me to hear about, kind of those hints or little things that we dreamt about as kids, right? Or the little hobbies that we had as children, and how that plays out when you're an adult, right? The connection between, some of those things back in the day, and how it tends to kind of surface again, right? When you're an adult.
So speaking to food systems, I think because I actively was pushing that aside or doing, some food work as like a part-time job, my connection to like public health, to like research, to even like when I was doing some tech stuff, I was always very aware of like who and how they were getting their catering, or this connection makes sense when I'm doing workforce development, whether it's like being involved in conversations with, retailers about what certain aspects of the challenges or solutions that they had, how it tied into other parts of this broader like system, whether it's like sectors or not, because food, hopefully we eat 3 times a day, and it just kind of always was in there for me.
Yeah, you're right. The fact that we eat multiple times a day, whatever that looks like, it makes it harder for it to leave your ethos, right? Because you are literally being, nourished by